Welcome to Tea with Amber, my dear friends. How wonderful that you are here to share this time with me. I just poured myself a delicious cup of masala chai today. And preparing for my Tea with Ambers really is such a deep, sacred pleasure. And I am truly very moved by this. I want to thank so many of you who sent me love notes, sweet little love notes, just telling me how much this time over tea means for you and how much you're appreciating it. So thank you so much for those kind, kind thoughts. You know, it was Mother Teresa who said it's the small acts that we do with great love that sort of make a difference in our world. And Tea with Amber is just my small, small act. So thank you for being here. Outside of my window is the most sweet sight. Last week at Tea with Amber, this robin just showed up on the branch right. I have a birch tree right there, right in front of me. And it showed up, and it was like listening in to Tea with Amber. And after the episode was over, it flew away, and I had a really good laugh about that. And then yesterday, the most amazing thing happened. The robin came back, but this time it is building a little nest right there on the tree branch, so that I can have this exquisite pleasure of watching this robin build its nest on a birch tree. It's the intimacy of this experience that touches me so deeply, which is why I sense that having a cup of tea with you is such an intimate act, isn't it, in that way? It is such an act of friendship and connection. And the purpose of Tea with Amber, as you know, has been to sow seeds of inspiration and reflection during this time of uncertainty. And so, you know, I think I'm grateful. I am deeply grateful to this time. So let's see, where are we now in this quarantine, this forced lockdown, this retreat? I think we're beyond 43 days. I think that's what it is here, at least in New England. And, you know, we are still sitting in the darkness of the unknown. We're standing in uncertainty. Some of us are experiencing this time as a time of ease. Some are experiencing it as a time of profound struggle. Some are finding immense blessings during this time. Others are finding this a time of deep, deep panic. But no matter where we are in this, the greatest challenge we all face is that of fear. Fear is virulent. Fear is ferocious. Fear is contagious. She comes in many guises. Fear of isolation, fear of connecting with people, fear of going hungry, fear of going to the supermarket, fear of dying from the virus, fear of having friends die from the virus, fear of not having enough money, fear of having too much money, fear of, and the list goes on and on. When we are driven by fear, we die inside. In episode 2 of Tea with Amber, I shared a few reflections from the indigenous people in our world, and I offered this term called wetiko. Wetiko is the name, for those of you who were on the series that time, wetiko is the word that the indigenous people used for the colonizers who arrived in the Americas 500 years ago. They were shocked by the worldview of the colonizers, and they said that the colonizers suffered from this disease that was worse than smallpox, worse than measles, worse than cholera. It was the disease of the mind. It was a mind virus. And this is of deep concern in our world right now as we sit here in our cave. The profound and insidious way in which we can all be held by fear through this time. The mind virus feeds on fear and separation. It is the kind of thing that is and we are all infected by it. Well, here's the thing, you see, none of us are exempt from the mind virus. We may think we are, but all of us have been programmed and conditioned and enslaved by a worldview, a dominant narrative that has been based on fear and separation. It has been designed on fear and separation. And therefore, we have all, over the past hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, been conditioned by this. We are all infected by it. And fear rises up very quickly for all of us. Can you imagine a world where the worldview was based on love and connection and inspiration and creativity, the kinds of institutions that would have been designed to support that world? Can you imagine how we would just intrinsically know we are loved, we matter, we are worthy, we're valuable in our own very right? But instead, the shadow that we have all suffered from collectively has kept us enslaved, has kept us imprisoned. Fear, the mind virus, will creep in on us from all sorts of sources. And if you're somebody who likes to watch a lot of television and media and is constantly really checking in, that is where the mind virus comes through. Because it is based on the communication of fear and keeping us in that place. The virus we suffer from internally from fear moves much more rapidly than the coronavirus does, the biological virus. So knowing that, I sort of feel that for us, we all have to be vigilant. We have to support each other in this time of the cave and beyond in the new story, in not stepping and being consumed by fear. We are going to have to support each other because we don't know how to do this alone. because we all know how that in fear we can be isolated and can fall into profound despair about what is going to happen to us. So, fear is contagious. Be vigilant. I wanted to offer to you today a reflection on fear from my book. It's called Dear Beloved, Sacred Messages to the World. I wrote this book, or no, that's not right. I did not write this book. This book was written through me about 5 years ago. And just a quick story on that. I was sitting in my dear beloved mother, who has since died. I was sitting in her sweet little garden in England, and I was drawing mandalas in my sketchbook, just because I was enjoying the process and the experience. And then after a while, what started happening was these messages would come through on my page, like raindrops falling on the page. And I, just as you know, that I've had a transmission from the coronavirus, the goddess is speaks to me. So in some ways, I guess I'm a clear channel for these kinds of downloads. But this book came from that, and the beauty of the book is that it takes place in a courtyard where there is a crowd gathered around the messenger, and they have come to the messenger because they are afraid, they're anxious, they're confused, their hearts are broken, they are going through a time of profound uncertainty. Now, this book was written 5 years ago, and it is now more resonant than ever. So here is what the messenger said about fear. The crowd says, "We are afraid." And the messenger says, "Be not afraid. For what is fear but a cloud of imaginings? Beware of being enslaved, for fear is a cunning mistress, seeking dominion over you. Greet her like an old friend, fluid and restless, but don't hold on so tight. Let her go. Don't you see? She is merely passing through." A simple but profound message that it is when we grasp and hold on to fear that we suffer. That if we could see fear as energy that comes through us and allow her to come through us and meet her and let her reveal what she has come to say and then let her go, we would be freed from the imprisonment of living constantly in the mindset of fear. Now, I am terrified of snakes. I have a real fear about snakes. But a few weeks ago, something happened to me. I went to a beautiful place near where I live with my sketchbook and watercolor paints. It was a happy day. The afternoon was sunny, and I was looking forward to this time of solitude, quietly sketching and painting. And I found a tree trunk stump, and I sat on it. And then suddenly I looked, and there at my feet was a snake. And I literally I panicked because that's what fear demands. I panicked and I wanted to run away, and I didn't know what to do, but I sat there and the snake just sat there right before me. And in my sitting there, I decided that I would actually just quietly connect with the snake. So I started singing a song. I made up a song. It went something like this: "Dear Mr. Snake, how are you? I've come to sit here too." and As I sat singing that song to the snake, I realized that what I was doing was befriending the snake, letting myself feel the compassion for the snake. And rather than my fear separating me from the snake and giving me a place of panic and desperation and anxiety, my fear literally melted into compassion. There was something so sweet about that moment, and I will never forget it. Because when we allow ourselves to meet our fear with clearness, with clarity, and to befriend it, that's a great word, befriend it. There is a quality of loving kindness that shows up. So, of course, the snake went off, and I continued to sketch my watercolor paint. Several years back, I was really deeply going through a time when I was kind of puzzled, not puzzled, but just kind of bewildered by all these aspects of my being that is so imperfect. And I wanted to meet them because, of course, you see, we tend to externalize everything. We see the bully out there, and we see the miser out there, and the murderer, and we do everything outside. But I wanted to actually meet them all inside me. So I did what I love to do. I invited my demons to tea. And I literally met all of them, meaning I met the miser in me, the one that hoards. And I wanted to know, what is she like? What is she all about? So I asked my miser, please reveal to me what you have come to show me. Now, one of the things that I use in my life to ground me, and perhaps many of you do too, is I journal. My journals are my alchemists. I sit with a journal, the open pages, I take my pen, and it grounds me into that moment. And so the revelations from all of my shadow sides came through in very curious ways. And by befriending all these aspects of what I would otherwise fear, I became less victimized, less enslaved by them. You know that poem, I know many of you know, by Hafiz, The Guest House? Well, that seems very relevant for this moment as we speak on fear. Let me read it. This being human is a guest house. Every morning is a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, a momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Treat each guest honorably. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Hafiz. Can you imagine if you were to consider, as you go through the chrysalis cave, what some of your fears are? What are you most afraid of right now? What is it that keeps you up at night? And if you would invite that fear to tea and ask it to reveal to you what it has come to show you, you will learn a great deal about yourself. Because it's only when we awaken, see more clearly what the fear is about, that we are liberated from it. We are no longer imprisoned by it. The mind virus that we spoke about can only be cured, and it can be cured, if we take the first step. Shining a light of awareness, we ask ourselves, what is this fear? Many times we don't. We run away from fear. We abandon fear. We're terrified of fear. We move away. We distract ourselves from fear. But here I'm offering you a way to meet your fear, befriend your fear, invite him or her to tea. And through that clarity, you will find yourself shifting. You will become more awake to what's going on in these times. You will be less ignorant. You will see with clearer eyes. There's another snake story that I like. This is an ancient one. I don't know if it's a Hindu one or a Buddhist one, but anyway, it intrigues me because of its deeper message for all of us. The story goes that there was a man that was put into a dark prison cell. And he was told that there was a snake in that dark cell with him and that he must not move. Otherwise, the snake would come and grab him and eat him up. So in the story, the man sits in the cell terrified, sweating all night, but he stays absolutely still. He doesn't move. And the next morning, when the first rays of the sun came through, he looked and he noticed that the snake wasn't a snake after all. It was a rope coiled around itself. A rope. He had dreaded and feared something that did not exist. He had imagined something that would terrify him when in fact it turned out to be a rope. A great little story for us. Because when we are in fear, we are often imagining and projecting something that has not happened in this moment into some future self, some future time. We have taken ourselves out of the moment and we have gone down a road, we've spiraled out of control, and we've created an extraordinary landscape based on what we most dread. Right? There is no reality to that fear. There is no security to that fear. We have made it up. The problem is we then act from that place. We act from a place of panic and desperation. We make decisions from that place. We are terrified, we're afraid, and that's what drives us. And it was never a snake, it was a rope. So that is the nature of fear, projecting us out into some future that we have not arrived at. And the problem with that imaginal, as the messenger said, the cloud of imaginings, the problem with that is you can't solve that problem in the mind because the mind has created the problem. It's just spiraling around you. You're feeling in the fear. You can't solve it in the mind because it hasn't happened. When something happens to us, in that moment, in the reality of our lives, we're able to solve it. We're able to look at the problem, we're able to see all aspects of it, and we're able to decide how to move. That's thoughtful, prudent thinking, not based on fear, but based on an assessment of a situation. So fear, beware of fear having dominion over you. Beware of projecting right now while we're all in the chrysalis cave of what is going to happen in the new story. Now, there are many scenes right now on the landscape of the new story that are terrifying, fear-based. And we're all feeling in this moment, the toxicity of it. But here again, in this story, let us just be careful of that. So how are we going to step out of that fear? Let me offer you a few ways to step out of fear. They're very simple ways because you see, truth is always simple. It's not complicated. Simple ways, simple practices to bring you out of the obsession or enslavement of fear. The first thing is to come back into the moment you're in and ask yourself this question. Am I safe in this moment? Am I safe in this moment? The moment is the only thing you know for certain. It is your only security. Nothing else is. So by coming back into the moment, you are grounding yourself in a sense of safety, security. You can even start practicing a mantra, an affirmation that I use very, very much in my life. I am safe. I repeat this to myself. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. That internal message you're giving yourself has extraordinary influence on your immune system, on your ability to get up and leave the house and masked and all, but to move in a way that you feel safe and protected. It's an internal process, an inner practice. The second thing, the practice is if your energy is right now going so much into fear and into the dread of what's going to happen in the future, that energy is being squandered and it's being amplified by exactly what you don't want. You've created the dread mechanism. What if you were to take that energy, that same energy, and focus on things you want to create, things you want to design, even during this time of the suspended pause? My daughter the other day said, I love writing poetry. I might write a book of poetry during this time. A friend of mine is busy taking some new courses. She's very excited about taking some new courses because she thinks it'll help her when this time comes to an end. So that creative response to fear, it's already in us. We don't have to go out looking for it. Will support us in moving through that dark, toxic, murky, ferocious place that fear holds us. So what is it you are designing in your new story? What gorgeous, exquisite creations are you putting your energy on and feeling your way into? The more your energy goes into them, the more you will see that energy rise, the happier you will be. And the third grounded practice that I find anchors me whenever I am spiraling into fear is that of gratitude. Rumi said, wear gratitude like a cloak, and it will feed every corner of your life. Gratitude is the simple act and practice of being thankful for what you have. Meister Eckhart is a 13th century monk, and he said, if your only prayer is thank you, that is enough. So a practice you might consider at this time as you move through this enforced quarantine is that of thank you. Thank you. And mean it. And feel your way into thank you. Thank you for my eyes that can see. Thank you for the bird that is building a nest. Thank you for my friends and family. Thank you for my ears that can hear. Thank you for this time with my friends in the world. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If you can live your life from that internal place, everything will shift. So a half hour goes by so quickly, doesn't it? For me, anyway. So I'm going to leave us today, with our tea with Amber, with a beautiful reflection from Khalil Gibran, master of poetry, mystic extraordinaire. And this poem is entitled Fear. So sit back, sip your tea, close your eyes, and listen to these words. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know. It's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. So may you, my dear friends, go into this week with curiosity, courage, and compassion for yourself. When fear shows up, and it will, pause and ask your fear, or draw your fear, or dance your fear, but discover what it has come to reveal to you about yourself. Do not run away from it. Befriend it, but then let it go. So I shower you with 1,000 blessings. I want to thank you for coming to my tea with Amber. You make my heart smile. Thank you. Goodbye.